Namaste, everyone. Very good evening and warm welcome to the final culminating session of our 10-day IKS certificate course, Integrating Indian Knowledge Systems in Academia through the New Education Policy 2020, a vision for civilizational reclamation, being offered by Nucleus of Learning and Development in collaboration with the IKS cell at Sri Guru Tegh Bahadur Khalsa College, Sri Anandpur Sahib, Punjab. It is my pleasure to welcome all our esteemed participants for this final session. And thank you everyone for staying committed to the course and these sessions for the past 9 days. And I'm very sure that all of you are very excited for this last session as well. Before I introduce our expert for today, Shri Dhruv Mahajan, I would like to warmly welcome him on the NLD platform. Personally, I'm very, very happy that he's agreed to do this session despite having a very major commitment at his end the past month and the past few days. And he's found time to talk about IKS in action. So welcome, Dhruv, and happy to have you. And we are all eagerly excited and waiting for your session. I would also like to extend gratitude on behalf of my team at NLD to the organizing team from Sri Guru Tegh Bahadur Khalsa College, Punjab, the convener of this course, Dr. Jasveer Singh, the principal of the college, coordinator, Dr. Gurpreet Kaur Madam, who is the in charge of the IKS cell, as well as assistant professor and head, postgraduate department of English, the co-coordinators of this course, Dr. Sharanjit Kaur, assistant professor in chemistry, and Professor Sukhwinder Kaur, assistant professor in commerce. Thank you so much, the entire team from Guru Tegh Bahadur Khalsa College, Punjab. And at NLD, we hope to collaborate with you in the near future as well. Thanks also to my co-coordinator, Dr. Vikas Rajpopat, Assistant Professor, Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Guru Ghasidas Vishwavidyalay, Bilaspur, Chhattisgarh. I think he'll be joining us in some time. And of course, thanks to all our 9 speakers over the past 9 days. All of you know that we have had a wonderful set of speakers and topics in this 3rd edition. And since Dhruv is here with us, I would just like to take him through what topics we covered in the past 9 days. So Dhruv, we started with Professor Umesh Arya from Haryana. He spoke on Patanjali Yoga Sutra. The next session was done by Dr. Belu Mehra. She is the director of Sri Aurobindo Society, Pondicherry. And she spoke on the contemporary significance of Sri Aurobindo's spiritual view of nation and nationalism. The 3rd session was done by Sri Vinay Kulkarni, and he spoke on a very important topic, the sacred role of the teacher in rebuilding Bharat. Session number 4 was done by Dr. Sandeep Atre, a counseling psychologist from Indore, and he talked about Sarvangeen Vikas, the Sandipani Krishna model. The last session of the first week was conducted by Dr. Eros Vaja, associate professor from MVM Arts College, Rajkot. And Sir spoke on IKS and the spirit of philosophy, more specifically on Bharatiya Darshan Shastra. The second week began with Kavita Krishna's lecture on an overview of IKS, and Kavita ji is associated with Brihat. The second session of week 2 was done by a performing artist from Manipur, Vandana Vahingbam ji. She spoke on ritual dance from Manipur as a medium of cultural expression and education in modern times. The third session of week 2 was done by Shubham Singh, who's an Indic researcher and an ex-IITian. And he brought in a perspective on how ancient wisdom and modern technology can be brought together by using the example of Ayurveda. Yesterday's session was done by Shri Kaushal Upadhyay sir from Ahmedabad, and he spoke on the Natya Shastra and emotional communication in modern media. And today we have Dhruv Mahajan, who is the founder of Leelaland Studios, Hyderabad, and he's going to speak on the topic, a game designer's perspective on designing a civilization rooted in Indian knowledge systems. So, Dhruv, I hope you got an overview of what we did for the past 9 days. And I think you are just taking it forward, and we are concluding on a high note. Let me now introduce our esteemed speaker, Dhruv. Dhruv Mahajan is currently exploring how game design can be used as a powerful medium for self-discovery and inner growth. He creates experiences that encourage people to pause, reflect, and connect more deeply with themselves. By blending thoughtful design with timeless principles from Indic tradition, his work aims to make technology a tool that supports mindfulness and conscious living rather than distraction. His vision is rooted in a personal journey that led him to spend 6 transformative months training as a classical Hatha Yoga teacher at Isha Yoga Center. Immersing himself in the ancient science of yoga gave him a deeper understanding of human experience and a way to offer these practices to others. Before stepping onto this path, he built a strong foundation in technology. He has a degree in computer science from BITS Pilani, and he specializes in systems engineering, for which he studied at Carnegie Mellon University. His early career centered on building impactful consumer technology products, which now inform his approach to creating meaningful and mindful digital experiences. By bringing together his background in engineering and his grounding in Indic sciences, Dhruv is working to design games that inspire reflection, awareness, and inner balance. Dhruv is also the founder of Leelaland Studios, which is an initiative rooted in what I just spoke about, where he brings his knowledge on game designing and Indic principles together on this platform. And I was privileged to know Dhruv last year when together we were fellow cohort members in an IKS fellowship offered by the Center for Indigenous Knowledge Systems, Anadi Foundation, Tamil Nadu. And Dhruv was working on an interesting topic for his fellowship, and I will request him to talk about that as well in the course of time. Everyone must also know that Dhruv was in the US for quite some time, and what brought him to India is his deep desire to work for IKS, to work for Indian tradition, and to take IKS to young people. So I think that is probably a turning point of his journey. Also, another thing that is quite important here is that last year, he was recognized for his work at a very important platform by none other than our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, which is a very proud moment in his life and for peers and friends who know him and his work so well. So participants here is a bright, talented, young individual who's not just talking about IKS, but he's living it and taking some concrete action to take IKS through game designing to our young people. And as Dhruv shares about IKS in action and how, as a game designer, he is trying to bring a civilizational perspective in his work. I'm sure it's going to be interesting, and you are going to learn, watch, and see how IKS is not being pursued by people on the other side of age, but IKS is also being pursued by young, dynamic mind like Dhruv. So with this, I invite Dhruv to take the session forward. Welcome again.
Namaskaram to everyone, and thanks a lot, Nidhi. I think I feel extremely privileged to be here. One, to even have the ability or have a platform to talk about IKS, that in itself is a huge honor. I cannot be more grateful to everything that has brought me here. So with that, I'll begin the conversation. So what I want to focus on today is that how do we move from talking about the models or the frameworks that IKS offers to actually building a civilization that is rooted in IKS. And I'm going to specifically come in from the lens of a game designer. I'll walk you through what that means. So you talked a lot about my background. I'll just briefly share my journey. So I studied computer science from Vitspilani Goa campus. I graduated in 2018 and then went to US to study systems engineering. I was quite happy being an engineer. I considered myself to be a good engineer. I was specializing in the design of safety critical embedded systems. It was very random that during my last semester at BITS, I stumbled across one of these spiritual books. And that just intrigued me to the extent that I spent almost a semester deep diving into Indic Knowledge Systems and spirituality, for lack of a better word. That's how my journey started. I got introduced to Isha Foundation in the same time period. And as I went through the practices that they offered, my calling or my interest in Indic philosophy reached a whole new level. All through my master's, I continued deepening my interest in Indic knowledge systems. And post that, I was reasonably sure that this was an area I wanted to work in. So broadly, if I were to look at my skill set or competence, I have specialized as a systems engineer. What we mean by systems engineering, it is a domain wherein we look at how different multiple complex systems interact and how they enable achievement of certain outcomes. It's a very, the definition looks very abstract, but it's basically about dealing with complexity when it comes to multiple systems working together. So my education can be applied to biological systems as well as the transportation systems, though I specifically studied software systems during my master's. Post that, I worked as a systems engineer in US for about 3 years and then moved back to India. I trained as a yoga instructor for 6 months. And that is the most formal education I have had or exposure I've had to Indic knowledge systems. Post that, I decided to become a game designer. It might seem like a leap, but how that journey basically happened. So my interest in as my interest in Indic knowledge systems grew, I started exploring different forms, different medium to share that knowledge with people. I explored conducting workshops as a medium. I explored films, media as a medium, and eventually arrived at games as the methodology to share my interest in Indic knowledge systems or my learnings in Indic knowledge systems with people. So my work basically explores how we can use video games as a medium for the propagation of IKS. Now, this particular talk, I want to structure this talk as a design problem with the goal that, okay, what will an ideal civilization of the future look like? So we all are standing here and looking at a future where we reclaim the traditional Indic civilization. But what does that look like? And where do we even begin designing that civilization? That is the question that we are going to explore. So, whenever we talk about a design exercise, the most important question that we need to answer is that what is the objective of this design problem? What is it that we want to achieve at the end of the day? And when we are talking about a mammoth task like designing a civilization, then that question becomes all the more paramount that what is it that the civilization needs to achieve, or what does an ideal civilization actually achieve at the end of the day? So here, just for the sake of this conversation, I have outlined a set of requirements that that we would like to have in an ideal civilization. The purpose of going through this exercise is just to walk you through a design thinking process so that we can apply these ideas to any aspect of civilizational design that we would want to endeavor into. So here the requirements that I have listed out are that we look at human life as a 100-year quest, mapping it to a game experience. Like we play a video game, we think of human life like a 100-year-long video game. And here the objectives are very simple. We want people to be motivated to play this game, or we want people to be motivated to enjoy life. What we want is that every morning an individual in this civilization should get up and should be super excited to go live life. Second, we want every individual to have the necessary resources to grow through life and to be able to complete this journey in an elegant fashion. And then the third objective that we are looking at is that we want the civilization to sustain and evolve indefinitely. Now, these are very, very high level objectives, a 10,000 feet view of what we would like a civilization to be able to do. And then from here, we'll get into the specifics of it. Okay, so one approach that I want to take in this conversation, and I would also like to encourage, is to take a toolbox approach. So when we talk about IKS offers us a whole range of frameworks or models to work with, from Purushartha to the Panchbhutas to the Panchkoshas to Tridoshas. These are different lenses or different ways of looking at the same system or to the and these can be used as design tools. As and when you require a certain model, you can look at the IKS toolbox, see what model works in that particular context and apply it. So here what we are going to do is we'll use three basic set of tools. So one is the toolbox that IKS offers. The second toolbox that we are going to look at is the game design toolbox. Now, why particularly game design? I want you to understand games from a fresh perspective compared to what games are generally known for. Games are experiences that have cracked human motivation. People play games today for thousands of hours in their life, or 2,000 hours, 3,000 hours, without getting bored. And most of the times, the objectives that people achieve at the end of these game experiences have no relevance to life. Still, they enjoy these experiences. So somewhere, games are case studies in themselves, which have basically cracked human motivation. A game designer is a person who understands extremely well how to motivate an individual to go on a quest that might take an extremely long period of time, but will ensure that the person goes through it joyfully, happily, in a motivated fashion. So there is a lot of learning that we can draw from games as systems and apply them into our civilization design. Like ideally, the dream is to design a civilization like a game. The way people play games, that they should live life in the exact same manner. They should be excited to live life. They should have challenges every day. They should have the skills to build onto those challenges. So here we are going to look at certain tools that a game designer uses to design games. We'll pick up one or two tools and just go deeper into it. And the third toolbox that I think that I will focus on is what we call systems thinking, or the ability to see how different systems come together and lead to emergent outcomes. Okay, now with this, with the toolbox with us, let's proceed ahead. So the question is, where do we start? Ideally, I would like to just open up the conversation and just hear inputs as to how do we even begin this mammoth exercise of designing a civilization. Maybe we can take 30 seconds, and if people just want to share thoughts in the comment box, so how do we even begin this exercise? We have a tradition that has answered every question that humanity could have ever had, and now we are standing at a point wherein we want to pick up those ideas and rebuild a civilization that could mimic what we had, or that could take us from where we are to, let's say, an evolved position. So where do we even begin? That's the question.
Yeah, any quick responses? You can put it in the comment box also. Very quickly. Where should we begin? कहाँ से शुरुआत होगी? Yes, anybody?
Yeah, I think the question is too abstract.
Yeah, I was thinking of two things. I was thinking of our stories. Just this is random. I was thinking of our core principles, some fundamental principles. I was also thinking of our gurus, some icons, some role models. Okay, Umesh ji is saying clear long-term vision. Okay. Okay. No, maybe Umesh ji, if you want to explain, you can elaborate it in the chat box. But yeah, I could think of three things immediately.
I'll tell you how a game designer would look at it. Okay. So the first question when designing a system is...
Okay, Arpit ji I'll just add, Arpit ji is saying some level of joy in the journey of human beings. Prachi ji is saying demonstration. We'll start with demonstration.
Okay. Demonstration basically means some blueprint.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good Prachi ji, good Arpit ji.
So as a game designer, when you are designing an experience, the first thing that you think about is what do you want to achieve at the end of the day? Right? What should the report card look like? What are the objectives of this civilization? What does success mean in this civilization? Or what does failure mean in this civilization? Like a different way to phrase the same question would be that tomorrow, if a kid is born in this civilization, and 100 years later that kid dies, what is a successful life? And what is a not successful life? So that's the first question that we need to find an answer to, because that question will guide everything else that we design. Like what sort of systems we build, what sort of institutions we build, what sort of incentives we create, what people do, what people don't do, what they eat, how they play. Everything is going to be determined by what is it that we need to achieve after a 100-year lifespan. And I think this is where the standard toolbox of IKS comes to our rescue. We have a framework called the Purushartha. I'll very briefly talk about it because I think everybody in this audience is already aware of it. But IKS provides us with this framework called the Purushartha, which has outlined or broken down human motivation into 4 broad categories, which we call Kama, Artha, Dharma, and Moksha. So here I tried to create an ideal report card of an individual based on these 4 categories. So when we talk about Kama, we are very loosely talking about the element of joy or pleasure in life. When we talk about Artha, we are talking about the ability to make wealth or preserve wealth or share wealth. When we talk about Dharma, we are talking about sustainability or like conducting action in a sustainable manner. And when we talk about moksha, we are basically looking at the aspect of inner freedom or absolute freedom. The corresponding questions that we need to answer in this civilizational design exercise or in our report card is that, did I live a life where my joy was meaningful? First, did I live a life where I was happy? Did I live a life where the happiness that I had some meaning to it? When we talk about artha, did I develop and use my capabilities to create some real lasting value in the world? Did my actions over a lifetime actually uplift others, strengthen harmony, sustain life? And then did I grow towards inner freedom, living in awareness, wisdom, and less compulsion? So what we are essentially saying is that at the end of somebody's life, they're asking these questions to themselves: that was I happy? Was I able to create wealth? Did I perform actions that led to sustenance of the civilization? Did I leave the civilization better than I found it? And did I pursue my true inner freedom? And the onus of these answers, like, we must realize that the onus of these answers is not on the individual alone. The onus is on the entire design of the civilization. We want to design our civilization in a manner where the answers to these questions are resounding yes. That, yeah, I lived a very happy life. I made wealth for myself, for my community, for my family. I was able to contribute to the society. I was able to create lasting freedom, or like I was able to actually liberate myself from my compulsions. You want to create a civilization where every individual at the end of the day has a yes to all of these questions. And why this report card is a relevant tool, or why Purushartha is a relevant tool. So the earlier requirements that I had listed down, wherein we want every individual to live, uh, to get into life or get into every day in a very motivated fashion. So if you look at Purushartha, it basically guarantees that motivation. We talked about having resources to go through life. If you look at Artha as an objective in the Purushartha framework, it guarantees that dharma is actually ensuring, or a dharma centric life is ensuring sustenance of civilization. And then moksha is the clarity, pursuit of moksha is basically the clarity that you get, which in turn motivates you to go through life. And move on. So now we come to the next design question, which is, what all do we need to think about when actually designing this journey of life? So far, what we have established is that what should the end state look like? Okay, we want people to be happy. We want people to have enough wealth for themselves. We want people to have contributed meaningfully to the society, and we want people to have ideally pursued their own inner freedom. That's the end state, which we can probably, for the sake of this conversation, agree upon. Now, the next design question that we need to look at is that, how do we go about designing the journey? We know the end state. We know when a child is born, what he or she looks like. What does the journey in between look like? Or what is an ideal journey for an individual? And you can map it to, let's say, a game experience, wherein, okay, you came into you came on this planet, and the parallel is that you turn on a video game. Okay, what do you need to do next, or what should the game designer actually make you do to actually get you to the successful end state? That is the question that we are asking. You can share thoughts. I can pause for 30 seconds, and if you have any thoughts, you can share in the comment box. Yeah.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. Anybody is free to just share their thoughts either in the comment box, or if you have any quick insights, you can just quickly unmute and share. So if we have anybody, we'll wait. Otherwise, we will continue, and probably you will have more questions by the end of the session. Either ways. Yes. Anybody who wants to come in at this moment? So Dhruv has talked about the end goal, the end objective. We have a civilizational perspective, and now the question is, how do we design? Okay, Sanmati ji. Okay, you want to ask at the end? No problem.
Okay. Okay, we'll proceed.
Okay, there's a comment. Go for daily prayer for getting calmness of our mind. That's what Prachi ji is shared.
Right.
Great. Thanks. Thanks, Prachi ji. Yes. Anybody, you can just put your thoughts in the chat box. Yeah, I think we can go ahead.
Yeah, we'll go ahead. So as you said, go for a daily prayer. So basically, we are looking at a set of rituals, a set of practices. Like are basically looking for a blueprint around how we can design every day, every week, every month, how we can design civilizational systems, how we can design our festivals, how we can design our culture, how we can design our communication systems, how we can design our workplace, how we can design our schools, all of that to finally get to the end state. Because all of this is going to contribute to whether we reach our end goal or not. Now, for this conversation, the approach that I am taking, yeah, so these are the questions. What are the different stages? To guide an individual through a 100-year journey, we must answer what are the different stages in life? What must a person learn at each stage? What is the progression system? Like, so if we want to reach a certain end state, then what does progress look like? Like, what should be achieved at, let's say, at the age of 10? What should be achieved at the age of 20? What should be achieved at the age of 50? What are the systems that we need to actually support that growth? Because learning is not going to happen in a void. We need education, we need systems that can actually nudge us towards the objectives that we are pursuing. The approach that I'm taking for this conversation, this comes from a more systems thinking toolbox, is that we look at life as a competency journey. So now we know that we are starting at a certain level of competency or skill. And at the end of our journey, we want to have a certain level of skill or competency. So what basically we start to look at life as a series of skills or competencies that need to be developed. To ground it in a more practical experience, let's say if I were to draw parallels with game design, when you start playing a game, the first thing you will learn is how to jump, how to walk, how to run, how to pick up a weapon. As you progress into the game more, you will learn about different combinations such that you can probably jump while running. You can probably shoot while jumping. So there are a series of skills that you develop as you go through the game that enable you to actually defeat whoever the enemy is in the game. Similarly, as we go through life, there are a series of skills that we develop that help us navigate through life. The approach that I'm taking for the sake of this conversation is that I'm basically looking at life as a sequence of skills that need to be developed. And the thesis here is that all skills are learnable, and it is only a certain set of skills that you need to actually take you through life and to get you to the end state. So we are looking at life as a series of skills. Again, if I were to draw parallels to game, if you look at life as a game, then you start with foundational set of skills. As you're born, you learn to talk, you learn to walk, you learn to read after a while, you learn to eat food, you build a certain relational competence or a relational dynamics with your family members and eventually with your friends. And as you go further in life, you gain the next set of skills, which is, let's say, how to work in a group of people, how to collaborate. You start building skills like the ability to think in mathematics, the ability to sing or compose music, and eventually you build the competence to monetize that. So we're basically looking at life as a series of skills. And what we are saying is that we need institutions, or institutions are the engines that help us build these skills. So institutions could be schools or education, could be hospitals, could be temples, could be workplaces. The goal is the mastery of purusharthas, eventually leading to moksha. So we are saying that we want to design the journey of life as a sequence of skills, and we want to design the civilization uh, in the format where we put institutions that can actually support the building of skills. That is the paradigm that I am presenting in this conversation. So now the next question that we come up with after all this, so we have outlined the objectives, we realize that we need certain skills to achieve those objectives. We have also agreed on the fact that we need certain institutions that will enable us to actually develop those skills which can take us to the end objective. Now, an important piece of the puzzle is, how do we design for motivation? We want people to be excited to be on this journey. We want people to get up every day and really want to go to get into life. We don't want people to not be excited. We don't want people to be bored. We don't want people to be anxious. Like, the design of our civilization should be such that everybody is excited to be a part of it the way they are excited to be a part of the game. And here, what I want to bring to the table is a tool that we call Flow, that is very commonly used in the game designers. It's a very common tool from the game designers toolbox. So here, what we are saying is that as long as the objective is meaningful to the player, if you ensure a fair balance between the challenge and the skill, then the player will actually enjoy the journey. Now, what this means is that, so if you look at this graph, on one axis, we are saying that we are plotting the skills of the individual, and on the other axis, we are plotting the level of challenge that the individual has to deal with. Now, if an individual is extremely skilled and the challenge is not so high, then they'll get bored out of it. So if you ask probably Sachin Tendulkar to play gully cricket, he'll get bored out of that exercise. He won't enjoy that exercise. After a while, it's meaningless for him. Now, the other side of the spectrum, if the challenge is too high and you don't have the skill to deal with it, then you will become extremely anxious in the process. So an example of that would be, if you tell me to pilot a plane, and I've had no training in how to pilot a plane, and there are 200 passengers who are sitting inside the plane, I would get extremely anxious doing that exercise. So what we're trying to communicate here is that, like, there has to be a very fine balance between the challenge that a situation offers and the skill level that an individual has. And our design of the civilization has to ensure that we are not overwhelming the people by putting challenge on their shoulders which they're not ready to handle. Neither are we underwhelming them by making them extremely competent and not giving them any challenge at all to pursue. A well-designed civilization continuously keeps individuals progressing without overwhelming them. There has to be a gradation of skill. An individual should have the design of the civilization should be such that it enables an individual to go from skill 1 to the next, to skill 2 to skill 3 in a constant manner, in a motivated manner, and yeah. So now I want to get to a more specific design exercise. I think this will make all that we talked about a little more concrete and less abstract. Wherein, like, if we were to design education as a system, or rethink it from the principles we just talked about, how would we do it? So that's the design exercise that we will go for. First, now bringing all the objectives that we initially discussed to the context of education. Think of education as a sandbox environment for foundational competency building for life. When we say sandbox environment, what we mean is that it is a test environment where we are basically helping an individual build the skills or the competencies that they will need for the journey that they're going to undertake after the education experience. So here we need to identify competencies that will enable independent pursuit of all the 4 purusharthas. So once an individual comes out of the system of education, we want that individual to be ready to tackle all the to create life or to navigate life in pursuit of the purusharthas. We want to create a progression of competencies based on the relevance of competencies in life, and we want to create simulations of life that will ensure what we call flow state by matching challenge difficulty with competencies. So your education system is basically a simulation of what happens in real life, or the way we need to design education is such that it can simulate the real life challenges, and it can give you the skills that you would need to navigate life in alignment with the Purusharthas. That is the objective that we are establishing for designing our education system. Okay, so now what I've done here is that I have actually tried to list down the objectives that an education system would achieve if they were to enable independent pursuit of the Purushartha goals post the education experience. You can take 30 seconds to just read this. I'll walk you through this as well. So when we talk about Artha basically is the aspect of wealth. So we want an individual to have the ability to be able to create value, or in simpler terms, to be able to make money for themselves, for their family. An individual should have the ability to solve problems, should have craftsmanship, should be able to manage resources, and the ability to generate and exchange value. In simpler terms, once a child comes out of the education system, we want that child to be able to make money for themselves and for the community, for their family. Second, emotional and relational capability, or what we call as karma. Education must help students understand and regulate emotions, build healthy relationships, develop curiosity, playfulness, aesthetic appreciation. We basically want life to be fun for the practitioner, for the student, and we want to design our education in a manner that post the education experience, a child is able to joyfully navigate life. The third aspect we talk about is dharma, where education must train students to understand the consequences of their actions uh, on multiple people across time, act in alignment with what actually sustains life, sustains civilization, build trust, reciprocity, societal cohesion, and finally the pursuit of moksha, wherein like education must teach self-awareness, introspection, emotional equanimity, non-reactiveness, meditative and contemplative skills. So these are the skills that at the end of the education journey we are expecting a child to have. uh, and why these skills? Because we want the individual to be able to craft a life for themselves that actually aligns with the civilizational goals that we had established in alignment with the Purushartha model that IKS offers. Okay. So the way we looked at civilizational design, the first thing we talked about was what need to be the end objectives. Then we talked about what needs to be the progression of skills and the progression of challenges in alignment with those objectives. And the third thing we talked about was how to ensure that people are motivated to build those skills and to pursue those objectives. Now we are doing the same thing for the education institution as an example. So we outlined a set of objectives that we need to achieve at the end of the education exercise. The next thing we look at is that what needs to be the progression of competencies. And this is one example or one progression that I came up with for the sake of the conversation. But my intent is to basically motivate thinking, or to encourage the audience to ponder upon the question: what needs to be the ordering of skills that, or the ordering of skills that an individual must pursue based on their context. So here what I've done is that like I've created a graph where like impact of action on other beings. As your perception increases, the you become aware of the impact that your action has. So first on your family, then on your community, eventually on the nation, on the species, and on all living beings. So as an example, let's say when I was maybe 10 years old, I would not really think too much about uh, let's say about the tree that got trimmed outside my house. But as I grow older and my sense of perception increases, I realize that the cutting or the trimming of that tree has an impact on my family, because it influences the sunlight that comes in, the level of oxygen that comes in. As my perception increases, I realize that simple act of trimming the tree has an impact on the local community as well, because of that tree, you would find a lot of kids sitting under that tree, and when the tree got trimmed, they would not sit there anymore. You would find older people just chatting, having chai under that tree. After the trimming of that tree, it won't happen. So as your perception increases, you become more and more aware of the impact of your action on the people around you, or on the broader systems around you. And on the other axis, I've actually plotted the impact of action across time. So with enhanced perception, you start to look at the impact of your action at a greater time frame. For instance, let's say, as an example, uh, alcohol. Uh, like somebody in their late 20s would say that the impact of alcohol on the system is just for one day. But as you bring more awareness into the system, you realize that no, the impact at least lasts for a week. And gradually you realize that no, it lasts for a month actually. And over a period of time, you realize that anything that you actually put into the body has an infinite impact on the system. So what I'm trying to talk about here is that there is a progression of skills that you build as you go through life. You can't expect a 5-year-old to understand how their action is going to impact the nation. But you can probably expect a 25-year-old to understand how their action impacts the nation. And as their perception increases, their sense of responsibility increases. And as their responsibility increases, they are able to actually regulate their actions in alignment with the Purushartha goals. So when we are designing for education, we need to think about the progression of skills that we need to empower the child with. If if we are putting more challenge if on a child, then their skill enables them to handle, then it's going to overwhelm the child. Maybe an example would be that if a child doesn't understand the impact of their actions on their family, let's say if I'm looking at a 10-year-old who doesn't understand the impact of their actions on the family, and the parents are forcing the child to go and earn money for the family, somewhere the challenge is misaligned with the skill. And that will inevitably lead to anxiety or frustration in the child. So it's one thing to understand the objectives, it's one thing to understand the competencies needed to achieve those objectives, but the ordering of that competencies and having a progression in those competencies becomes extremely important as well when designing an experience that can motivate an individual to joyfully go through life and achieve the Purushartha goals. So here what I've done is I have created a competency progression. This is something I just created off the top of my head. But I'll just walk you through it, and we can maybe talk about it for 5 minutes. So what we've done is here we have created different levels, the way we look at levels in a video game. So the way how do you play a video game is that when you start playing it, you have a tutorial level where it introduces you to basic skills. Okay, you need to walk, you need to press a space bar to jump, you need to, let's say, press the A key to actually use the weapon. And then you have what we call a boss fight, and you need those basic skills to actually defeat the boss. And as you defeat the boss, the new level opens up, and it gives you a new set of skills. You again hone those skills over the course of the level, and then you have a new boss that you need to defeat. So I am looking at the design of the education system from a very similar angle, that what are the game levels that we need to look at, what are the competencies that those levels actually help with. So as an example, okay, awareness is the first skill that we need to build. What does awareness mean? Are we able to notice things around us? Are we able to notice our emotional triggers? Are we able to notice the emotional impulses? Okay, now that you have built awareness, what is the next level that we go to? Is there a space between the emotional impulse and the corresponding action that we perform? So if I'm feeling very agitated today, do I immediately start shouting on my friend? Or is there a space between the feeling of getting agitated and the action of actually shouting at my friend? Then once you have mastered creating that space, the next as level is about alignment. That like, do I fall for instant gratification, or do I actually pursue long-term objectives? So if I'm craving for a chocolate, and I have decided to follow a diet chart, am I actually going to give in to that craving, or can I prioritize my long term goal over the immediate craving? Now, if we have not developed the former competencies, then we won't be able to actually work on pursuing prioritizing the long term goal over immediate gratification. Post that, we look at maintaining regulation under stress, pressure, or conflict. So again, somebody who cannot choose long-term goals over short-term goals will not be able to do the same under stress or under pressure. So there is a sequence in which we need to build on to the competencies. And then post that, we talk about the time horizon, acting with long-term consequences over short-term consequences. Then looking at wider circles, family, community, nation, species. And here, the level 7 that I've put out is what we call as flow regulation. So just bringing the conversation back to the flow subject that I mentioned, we want the challenge and skill to be in a certain balance so that an individual is motivated to go through that journey. In addition to that, we want the individual to actually have the skill when they go into life to build competencies and to take on challenges in a manner that doesn't overwhelm them or doesn't underwhelm them. We just don't want the education system to be exciting for our kids. We want the kids to be able to create exciting lives for themselves. And that is a specific competence in itself. That, do I understand how to build skills? Do I understand how to take up new challenges? Can I calibrate the level of challenge that I'm taking up versus the level of skill that I have? So we want the system to be developed in a manner where the child actually gets this ability as well, which we are calling as flow regulation here. And I put an infinite level symbol here, which what I'm calling as spontaneous dharma, that can be act by intuition in a non-reactive, wisdom-based decision manner. Okay, now we come to the third aspect that we mentioned earlier. How do we design for flow in the education system? Skill and challenge should mimic real life challenges. Like, education is only meaningful when it is an appropriate simulation of life. So the challenges and the skills have to mimic the challenges and skills in life. Challenge should match the competency being developed, and skill and challenge progression should be carefully balanced, ensuring flow at all times. So what I did here was I just put down a challenge test that maps to the competency that we were talking about. So if we talk about awareness or noticing impulses, emotions, and triggers, the challenge test is the ability to ignore tempting stimuli, observe impulses without action, unless you're absolutely sure that the student is able to get through this challenge test. There is no point going to the next competency level. And that's how it needs to be designed as well. Now, the interesting thing here is that, like I personally draw parallels between the way we design tests in an education context versus the way a video game designer designs the boss battle. Technically, both of them are the same things. When you are having a boss fight in a video game, when you're fighting the enemy, the designer wants to ensure that you have built enough skill such that you can defeat the enemy. That is the intention of the designer. And as an education designer, also, the intent is exactly the same, that we want to ensure that the child has developed enough skills such that they can get to the next level. But the way the child approaches the exam versus the way a gamer approaches the boss battle are completely different. A gamer is willing to fail 100 times because they're extremely motivated to get to the next level. They will fail and then again try, and fail and again try. There is absolutely no fear or anxiety associated with defeating the enemy in the game. Somewhere, that is the model that we need to deploy in the education context as well. and we can pick up a lot of tools from the game designers toolbox that actually uh, lead to that emotion or motivation. Yeah. So yeah, so that was most of what I wanted to talk about. I'll briefly summarize all that we discussed. So one, meditating on the intent to design an ideal civilization. I think this is an exercise that everybody should engage in a personal capacity as well. That what would an ideal civilization look like, or what should our country look like 100 years from now? Taking a toolbox approach to civilizational design. And we know that IKS offers us a whole range of frameworks. We know that games offer us a whole range of tools or frameworks. What we can pick up from there, what we can apply into our systems of education, systems of healthcare, into marriage as an institution, into family as an institution, into workplace as an institution, so that we can move towards the Purushartha outcomes. Creating a report card of life according to Purushartha, looking at the journey of life as a sequence of skills and challenges. Then we talked about understanding flow, that ensuring that skills and challenges are balanced to keep individuals motivated through life, creating a goal for education system according to the Purushartha, and then creating a skill tree for education to empower independent pursuit of Purushartha outcomes, and ensuring flow in education system by balancing skills and challenges. So that was what I wanted to talk about. I'll quickly talk about the work that we are doing at Leelaland Studios as well, and then I'll open up for questions. So yeah, designing a civilization, the civilization as a game is like an audacious dream, and will require a lot of work. Where we can start with is designing games to model ideal civilizations. And that's what we do. We are creating games that can actually mimic what ideal civilization would look like. We simulate dharmic systems so that players can experience the design logic of IKS and not just study it. And the more we play these worlds, the closer we come to building them in real life. So the first game that we are working on is called Seekers of Shiva. This game is about a young devotee who lives her life in search of Shiva. She journeys to the 12 Jyotirlinga temples in search of Shiva. Through this journey, she realizes that ego is the enemy, and she'll have to dissolve her ego to finally realize Lord Shiva. So this is our concept art for ego as the real enemy. It has 6 tentacles, which are representative of the 6 Shadripus: Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Mada, and Matsarya. And ego sits on the head of every individual. This is our protagonist, Tara, who longs to find Shiva in a world that has already lost itself to AI. And dance is her identity, power, devotion. She is instinct driven, playful, rebellious. And this is one of the enemies that we came up with, which we are calling the enemy, this guy Folly, the phone robot. And this robot, his job is to distribute phones to kids, to hypnotize them into endless scrolling. These are some of the renderings of the temples that we have done. So this is one rendering of Somnath temple that we do. And this is a small concept art about our protagonist actually finding Lord Shiva within herself and then finding Lord Shiva in everything around. So basically, the purpose of the endeavor that we are on, we create games as a medium to experience a civilization rooted in IKS. We are creating games as a medium for mental emotional well-being, creating games as a medium to learn IKS, and just wanting to propagate IKS in popular media. So yeah, so that's all I have.
Great. Wonderful, wonderful. Do you want to show the website and Instagram page of Leelaland Studios?
Yeah. So the website is still in works, but I'll maybe point to it. So the website is leelaland.in. On our website, what we are trying to do, we are trying to create a platform for small dharmic casual games.
Mhm.
What we'll have in the next few months, simple dharmic jigsaw puzzles, dharmic crossword, dharmic antakshari, like small game snippets. So Mokshapatam, the original version of Snakes and Ladders, like games which are very small mini games that can give you nuggets of IKS. These would not be very long form exercises. These would be small game experiences that people can consume in like 5 minutes time. Like this is a small game that I created, wherein the purpose is actually to pick up the buckets and to serve food to all the participants who are sitting before you get an opportunity to consume it yourself. So we are building these small games, and they'll be up on our website in the next few months. Right now, it's just one game, which is like a Panchatantra jigsaw puzzle game that we had uh, put out. And we'll also be will have a mobile app out in the next 2 to 3 months as well. So that's our website. And let me see if I can open my Instagram. 1 second. Yeah. So on our Instagram, we are again trying to create media that can actually incorporating some IKS elements.
Participants, I hope all of you can see.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dikshita. Thank you, Arpitji.
Yeah, so this is all so small mini series that we did on Ramayana
Mhm.
a while back. So yeah, you can follow us on Instagram. So what we're trying to do with Instagram, we are basically trying to again focus on IKS in action. How we can pick up certain elements from the IKS toolbox and start exploring various contexts in which it gets applied in different formats. So, as an example, when we talk about not worrying about the fruits of your action, or rather focusing on action and not worrying about the fruits of your action. And that's a 10,000 feet high statement. And
Mhm.
that translates into infinite different formats when we talk about applying it. So we are starting to create a repository of content where what does that translate into when you're actually writing an exam. So if I am writing an exam and I am unable to answer 5 questions, or I'm able to answer 5 questions in a row, what does that make me feel? And how can I actually look at Karmanyavade Karaste in that very context? What sort of self-talk I need to do in that very context to bring in the idea and to actually get through that situation. So that's what we are trying to build on Instagram. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I think some of them were asking for the Instagram link, and I can see that Lippy ji has put the Instagram link in the chat box. So it's a sincere request to all the participants that if you are on Instagram, kindly don't waste much time and please follow Leelaland Studios work. They're going to come up with a mobile app in the coming few months. And once Dhruv shares it with me, I can pass it on to all of you as well. Uh, okay, I'd also like all of you to check Leela Land Studios website as and when more and more stuff is put out there. And it is great to share that Dhruv was one of the winners of the hackathon, which was and he was one among the many winners of a hackathon competition, and he was honored in the presence of the Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi at the Republic Plenary Summit in 2025. So this particular competition, the Limitless India Youth Hackathon, which celebrated the brightest young minds under 30. There were several individuals who submitted their entries across 9 different categories, where the main theme was visionary ideas aimed at building a limitless India. And there were different categories like science and technology, AI and machine learning, grand strategy and geopolitics, deep tech and semiconductors, many categories. And in the category of celebrating history, culture, and tradition, Dhruv was the winner. And his contribution for development of interactive gaming experiences that bring traditional knowledge to life, blending technology with cultural heritage, was recognized in this summit in the presence of the Honorable Prime Minister. I think that's a huge, huge achievement, and it also sets a wonderful vision ahead for you and for Leelaland Studios. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of Lipi Shahji, who is the co-founder at Leelaland Studios. And if Lipi ji, you want to share anything, you are most welcome. So let's start with questions and comments. So Dr. Sheetal Jha has complimented your efforts of demonstrating ancient knowledge. And we'll take Arpit ji's question now. He's asking, which AI tools are you using to create dharmic videos?
Yeah, it's mostly Leonardo AI and Midjourney.
Okay, which is the second one? Sorry.
Midjourney and Leonardo AI.
Okay, okay. Yes. Arpit ji, brilliant. Okay, he's saying brilliant. That's great. Okay. Rajni ji is saying very penetrative session with clear description of progression of every learner during educational years. Yes, I also thought that it was very apt to bring in that educational perspective, because our participants here are educators, and I think a lot of what you demonstrated in terms of the Purushartha toolbox could also be discussed in the classroom, at least to initiate IKS with students, even if they are not from the game designing perspective, even if they are not from the engineering background. I'm sure so many of our students are into video games, and they spend a lot of time in a day playing video games. So bringing that perspective really helps. So yes, I think that entire element of how what is the ultimate goal of education, what should be the outcome of education in an ideal civilization that we are looking to build, because education is so important for a civilization, especially for a civilization like Bharat, which is a knowledge civilization. We can't ignore education and knowledge. So that's great. Okay. Okay, yeah. So you can also provide your email ID in case anyone wants to reach out to you. And I would again encourage all our participants to consider inviting Dhruv to your respective colleges and universities, uh, thinking about how you can introduce your students to IKS in action. And I believe that it makes a great difference when somebody who's young and who's developed something, who's created something, comes and talks to students. And this entire idea about IKS only being very theoretical, कि ये तो पुराना knowledge है, how we are going to utilize it today, I think that will be dispelled by people like Dhruv, who are making efforts to concretize IKS. Great. Okay, the floor is open for more questions and comments. We will wait. So I had a question meanwhile, which I would like Dhruv to respond to. What are the challenges that you face from two perspectives? One is a game designing perspective, of course, because that is your core training. And second, from a civilizational perspective. Why I ask from a civilizational perspective is because of the kind of education that all of us sitting here have undergone. We now need to reconnect to our civilization, right? Uh, it is very different for somebody who's studied in their mother language, who's been groomed and cultivated in their own civilization, to take up something like this versus someone, and I'm talking about myself as well, who's been a part of a colonized education system in an alien language and now wants to rediscover his or her roots through the medium of games.
Okay. So I'll first talk about it from the civilization perspective. I think I am not interested in IKS because IKS represents my history. Like my interest in IKS is grounded in the realization that it's a more optimum system, or it's a superior way to do things. And how to arrive at that realization in the first place? I think it's just first principle thinking, that as an engineer we are trained to question, and the more you question, um, the more you realize that there are gaps in what people around you are telling you. And the it's just the act of constantly questioning that leads you to deeper and deeper and deeper questions, and as a consequence of that, deeper answers as well. And it just so happens that if you question long enough, you will find that the repository of Indic Knowledge Systems has answers to some of the most profound questions that you could have ever asked yourself. And you don't find answers to those questions anywhere else. So it's just a consequence of uh, constantly questioning life, and asking yourself if there are better ways to do things, and then realizing that all the answers already lie in the tradition. uh, so my journey has been very organic in that regard. Like I say it in a banter that I used to look up to the likes of Steve Jobs and Elon Musk when I was in India, and then the time I spent in California, I spent all that time studying J. Krishnamurti. So it's just that the more questions you ask, the deeper those questions become, the deeper the curiosity becomes, and you realize those answers are only there in Indic Knowledge System. Those answers are not to be found anywhere else. So if you question long enough, you will very organically come back to your own tradition. Now, in terms of the challenges, I think if you have actually ventured deep enough into the tradition, then that tradition has the ability to sustain or to motivate your journey. So all the social challenges that come along with it are quite insignificant when you look at the depth of wisdom and the depth of joy that the tradition actually offers you. So those end up being teething troubles that you are more than willing to navigate those social challenges that come up, because what you are receiving by spending time studying the tradition is extremely beautiful and extremely positive. As a game designer, yeah, so the gaming industry in India is fairly nascent, I believe, and we are yet to have a breakthrough moment when we look at the gaming industry in India. So there have been challenges in terms of finding resources for skill building, or being able to put together a team who is dharmically motivated and at the same time is interested in building video games. So that has taken a fair bit of time. I mean, it has taken me more time than I had anticipated in the first place. It's very hard to first find people who have had training in game design, and
Hmm.
even harder to find people who are interested in Indic knowledge systems. Now, as an example, finding an artist, uh, art is you have to be very deeply trained in Indic knowledge systems as well as in visual design as well as in game design to be able to design the artwork for video games.
Correct.
Somebody with that combination of skill is challenging. It
Yes.
takes a while.
Difficult. Correct. Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I think I got the answers to both my questions, and I just hope that it has helped the participants get a better understanding of what this means, especially when being around young students who are into technology, social media use, doom scrolling, pop culture content, which some of us may find difficult to understand because as teachers we come from a different generation, were trained differently, and had exposure to traditional classroom teaching, which was mostly not aided by technology. So now we have technology aided teaching, where the new education policy is actually encouraging teachers to bring ICT to the classroom. So I think from that perspective, it also helps us to bring this technology to the classroom. Great. Yes, I think there was a comment by Sanmati ji. Sanmati ji, if you want to unmute and elaborate, feel free. She's talking about Indian history had many IKS topics, and I believe she was referring to the taught history, which was very dull, drab, and boring. And I see nowadays many AI tools are being used to tell stories about our heroes and heroines, unsung heroes and heroines. And that's a good use of technology, in my opinion. Great. Yes. Anybody else? We have time for one or two more questions. Yes. Who's this? Okay. Somebody was trying to speak. May I know who was that? Okay. Rajni ji is asking Dhruv, why some of the games have made the players aggressive and violent?
Okay. I think somewhere as a designer, it's very important to or to keep an explicit goal in terms of
Dhruv, I think your voice is breaking.
on the emotional state of
Yeah.
the player to be, or what sort of learning outcomes you want to make sure at the. Am I hello? Can you hear me?
In between, I think your voice was breaking. Rajni ji, were you able to hear Dhruv clearly? I was not.
No, ma'am, it was inaudible.
Yeah, if you could just repeat.
Okay. Am I audible now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So I think it's important to acknowledge that games is just another medium. The way you had books, then you had television, you had films, you had YouTube. Now we have video games. So games is basically just a medium. There is nothing more to games as an entity than it being a medium. And through that medium, you can communicate anything. Now you can, even in terms of films, you can build a film that's like very aggressive, very violent. You can build a film that's extremely pacifying, that teaches you how to meditate. It entirely depends on the intent of the person who's designing the game, or in other context, who's writing a book, or who's designing, who's creating a film, what they want to get out of the experience. And generally, people don't keep explicit outcomes as, okay, this game or this film should teach the audience this particular aspect. unless the designer actually puts that intent in the design process, you will not see that being manifested in the outcome. Generally, as a designer, people are looking at making money out of an experience, out of a game. Finance is what drives the game design process and any media design process. And uh, the other part of it is that aggression is attractive because it works with the neural circuitry in a manner that it gives you a high, it gives you a thrill, and people get hooked onto it. Now, an industry that's exclusively focused on making money would want to latch onto it to the extent possible. So that is why games lead to aggression or violence, because kids are only playing games like PUBG today. You can design different kinds of games. You can design games that can make people pacify. I can build a game that is about petting a dog. Or I can build a game that is, I don't know, about uh, navigating the stars for all that matters. Yeah, it's about the design. It's about what you want to put into it. Yeah.
Correct, absolutely. I think we do have some issues with resources or with talent, especially when it comes to the kind of multifaceted training that you just referred to, that you need a person who's trained in the tradition, you need him or her to be trained as an engineer or as a game designer or at least as a tech person, or and you also need him or her to be trained in visual communication, probably also language, because we can't have games in English. We may have games in English, but if we have to reach out to the hinterland, the rural areas, we need content in our own languages. So you also need somebody who's trained to understand how pop culture content works and what will work and what will not. So that is a skill set that may be challenging to find out. Okay, we'll take Arpitji's question, and this will be the last question for this session. He's asking, sir, you touched about meta IKS principles for designing civilization. So if you could touch upon few tangibles of that in public policy and governance, what it can be termed as government shapes citizens' journey. Do you want him to clarify?
Yeah, a little more.
Arpitji, is it possible for you to unmute and clarify?
Yes, ma'am. Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
Sir, so just I wanted to comprehend, like you touched upon different meta principles. So if we see in our context, most of the citizens' journey might be dictated by government policies. So if we want to translate those IKS principles into some tangible governance frameworks or policy decisions, what, in your opinion, they can look like? So like if you want to gamify a citizen's life, so there the government is the deciding factor. So if the government wants to use these gamification principles, did you have some insights on that? And also if you could give some book recommendations, sir, on this topic. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So, one second.
Good question, Arpitji.
Yeah, see, the way I look at it, or the way I would approach the question, when you are playing a game, it doesn't matter who the game designer is. At the end of the day, it is the design that we interact with. Now, the design can come from, let's say, one designer, which in the context of this conversation may be a private entity, or can come from a designer who's democratically designing the system, which may be the government entity. Like, what truly matters is what the person interacts with. So maybe a more tangible example would be now the design of city spaces. Right now, city spaces is a subject area that influences everybody's life. What I mean by city spaces is that okay, when I'm looking at the IKS principles, or even when I'm looking at Purushartha as a framework, as a system, now when you compare it with the design of cities today, the city center today is the Artha centric region, which is like the area of wealth creation. We are designing cities in a manner where the center of the city is the space for maximum wealth creation. The same city could have been designed from a moksha centric lens as well, which in a more tangible manner would translate into having a temple space as the city center, where people can go to for their inner freedom or their inner clarity. You could design it from a kama centric lens, where the city center is, let's say, a disco, right, or a cinema theater. So at the end of the day, the citizen is going to interact with the design of the city. If if the city center is a temple space, then every person who goes through that city center will end up coming in contact with the temple, which will enhance their moksha trait. Whereas if the city center is an economy centric, is the center of the economy, then everybody is going there to gain money, to do work, which in turn enhances their artha quotient. So this may be an example. I'm not sure if that was exactly what you're looking for, but this may be an example where a government policy aspect about how to design a city has a very direct implication on the life of a citizen. Now, the next question that comes is that how do we influence it, or how do we actually reorient it, which is where the government policies start to come into play. That how do we design policies which encourage, let's say, more dharmic activity in the center of the city? And a lot of ideas can be picked up to answer that question from the game design toolbox as well. So then it's about building the right set of incentives, right? That can we incentivize people to actually start repositioning the city structure? Uh, Again, the design methodology would be that what is the end goal we are looking at? What is the final city design that we are looking at? And then what are the set of incentives that we can actually put into place to move towards that city design? Now, those incentives can be financial incentives, or can be cultural incentives, can be social incentives, all of that. Does that answer the question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Dhruv, in any case, if you have any reading recommendation or any book recommendation that you would like to share with participants, you can pass it on to me and I will share it in the WhatsApp group that we have. If we have time for just one last question by Sunita Madam. She's asking, Sunita ma'am, are you there? Are you there? Okay, I am. Yeah, I think I can see her. Yeah, Sunita ma'am is there. Okay, so her question is, to what extent can games prevent cultural erosion by making learning about heritage?
Okay. So, if you ask my honest opinion, I think games are the future of all forms of education. Like in the next, the way nobody knew what YouTube would be in like early 2000s, and today pretty much all of education is actually happening on YouTube. If we are being honest to ourselves, I think it's going to be very similar with video games. Like all of education will happen through video games in the next 15 to 20 years. And
That's scary. That's scary for people like us. Yeah, I agree with your insight about YouTube because, I used YouTube extensively now as an educator, and this started during the pandemic for me.
no, I agree. I agree. Like all of education will happen through video games in the next 15, 20 years. And so if the question is about games preventing cultural erosion, I think it's going to be very similar to YouTube, that like if you put a video on YouTube today, it's going to stay there forever. Similarly, there will come a time when like people will learn about partition of India by actually being one of the civilians during the partition period. Like they'll actually walk through that experience of getting separated from their family, getting separated from their house, and relocating to in a different part of the country, settling in. They'll actually go through that experience, live that experience, and like in my opinion, like ideally it will be incorporated in the traditional education system itself. So when a child is learning about the partition in 9th or 10th grade, then they will actually learn by experiencing the partition of India, and not by reading a book or watching a video. So I believe games will be one of the key factors. Games are essentially simulations of reality. You can codify a piece of reality in a game experience, and then make somebody experience it. So I think this will be one of the most fundamental tools that will be available to educators, or to anybody who's wanting to communicate the depth of an experience to somebody. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Wonderful response, Sunita ma'am. You got your answer. And overall, it's been such an eye-opening session for all of us here, because as educators who deal with young people day in and day out, I think we need to brace up for the future in all ways possible and try and integrate games or other technological tools in our teaching learning processes. So thank you so much, Dhruv. First of all, thank you for taking out time and interacting with our participants and delivering such an insightful perspective on a very fundamental question with respect to IKS, like what is the kind of civilization that we have inherited and what is the kind of civilization we are looking to build. This is a question important not just from the game designing perspective. I think it is crucial from all different perspectives for people in all fields. And I think your work at Leelaland Studios with Lipiji, it is incredible. We wish that you interact with more and more educators, more and more students, so that the significance of what you're trying to do reaches the nook and corner of Bharat. And we wish you the best in your journeys ahead. We hope that Leelaland Studios grows to be a phenomenon, and that we can give examples of your success in our classroom. And it is always very encouraging to have people on board, interact with educators, especially those like you who are who implement IKS. We teach IKS, which is also important because we didn't have the opportunity to do so for the last 6 decades. Now at least we have this opportunity, we have the confidence, we have the space, but we also need to keep interacting with IKS practitioners, both traditional scholars as well as young people like you who are trying their best to integrate IKS in their work by using technology. So thank you so much, first of all, for accepting the invitation and being so graceful in terms of sharing your knowledge and your work. And I hope that our participants will reach out to you and they will invite you to their institutions to talk about your work. So thank you so much. And again, wish you the best. And in the future also at NLD, we hope to collaborate with you. And whenever you feel that you need a platform, you can count on us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
Great. Namaste. Thank you so much. Yes, hope technologies play a role in recreating lost cultures. Absolutely. Absolutely. Great. Great. So Dhruv, you can exit the meeting.